I'm here with the filmmaker for City of Wind. We are at the Venice Film Festival in the Horizonte section, a section that has been very kind to you in the past. This appears to be a continued exploration of an idea that you had in a short film, The Mountain Cat. They don't really resemble one another. This feels like a larger sense of a preoccupation that you had based on something that happened to you. So did the feature sort of like, was it always implanted there for you? Was it always going to be a point of interest that you wanted to visit and further investigate? Or did the short film sort of like gave you more of an opportunity to want to get to know that male protagonist character furthermore?
Yeah. No, actually the feature film existed before the short film. So I had already started writing the script for the feature, and I was trying to get it out there to see what's possible, you know, sending it to Torino Script Lab and Locarno Open Doors. And one of the comments that I would always get is, you know, we're loving this idea, I love the script, but we wanna see what you can do in terms of film. And you know, I come from a background where I had no idea that there was such a focus on festivals. When I was a student in film school, I just didn't know that like you had to, that like,
it was like
short films were like how do you call it, like a business card almost.
Yes,
you
yes,
need
yes,
it
a
in
calling
order
card.
Yeah. And so basically after attending Locarno Open Doors, I went back to Mongolia and immediately started the process of shooting the short film. I wrote the script and I shot the film within like a month's time. And I kind of produced it myself, and yeah, I really forced all my friends to be on the production. The girl who plays the main character was my assistant. And yeah, it was just a very run and gun guerrilla style filmmaking.
It's like there's this three-pronged approach at the very onset of the film where you almost unmask and take away sort of the mythology of what we understand to be the shaman character. But I also like the second and third shots, which gives us access to this character. And I was thinking about how it might have been difficult for you either in the writing process to sort of like come up with that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was really important for me was to find him always in the spaces, in different spaces. So it's not just about following the individual, it's about always finding the collective in the space of the individual, or we start with the collective and slowly find him. And so it's really this, I guess you could say, tension, or this kind of
gravitational pull between him and all these other characters.
Yes, it's always him and the society. It's always him and the space and the people around him. And I don't really specifically go into who he is in terms of what's his hobby, what is his favorite food, and all these things. But I always made sure that for me, it was important that we understand what his relation was to his parents, to his sister, to his friends, to his neighbor, to the larger society, because that's what the film is. It's not, you know, it's not just an individual journey. I'm really trying to give a portrait, almost a documentation of life in Mongolia right now. Maybe in 10 years, it won't be the same, but I really want people to be able to watch the film in 20 years' time and say, okay, 2020s in Mongolia, this is it, you know? And this is why I also approached generally the style of the film in a very minimal, naturalistic way. I didn't want, I don't know, magic realism just because, you know, we have shamanism in the film.
Just because it looks cool.
Yeah, or I don't know, social realism, because, you know, we're kind of talking about a part of society, or at least the district, and so I didn't want to make statements, large statements like that. You know, I wanted the audience to kind of find the space on their own. You know.
Hence perhaps why the working title for I want to say a long time, I don't know, but the working title was the name of the character, and we lose it for City of Wind.
Yeah.
And there's one great panning shot. we get a sense of the cityscape, but you stay on this panning shot for a long time. There's a lot of intent there. There's a very specific reason as to why you present that vista in that way. And even the I don't want to say helicopter shot at the end, but you're offering an overlook of this space, exactly like you say at this specific time and place. How about that insert, that shot, the importance of where it is in the film, A, but also B, the length of it, and also that movement, the importance of you wanting to have that in the film?
It's not, it's not just the city I wanted to show. I wanted to insist on it a little bit because it's the history of Ulaanbaatar. It's the hierarchy, it's the stratas and layers of the city that actually tell a story of the last 20 years of our history. So again, it's part of the documentation process of me wanting to give almost like a historical a viewpoint, you know, because for me that shot is representative of our lives since we became capitalist. You know, you see a little bit the Soviet monuments and the Soviet apartments, but at the same time you have all these modern apartments, but then you have the yurt districts where more nomads are moving to the city, and then you have the mountains. It kind of hints at the countryside of Mongolia. And also because the music there, I just wanted it to be emotional, you know, that moment.
So Ze and Maralaa, there's this sequence in the film. If I have to think about this film again on future terms, I'll pull away this one sequence. I want to say it encapsulates that rapport to a degree that's infinite, but before the other scenes.
I mean, going back a little bit, I really wanted to focus on people's faces as well. I really wanted to focus on people's gazes and people just looking at each other and seeing each other and acknowledging each other, because this is part of, I guess, my exploration of spirituality. Like, what is spirituality? How am I going to depict it if I'm not going to approach it magically? Because, you know, and it kind of goes back actually to that moment when I went to a shaman, and kind of the inspiration behind the whole film. You know, the rituals, they're extremely intimate. And it's not just the topic of the conversations, it's also the fact that you're so close to each other during the rituals, and the fact that you're being sniffed, which is the way that Mongolians kiss each other, and you know, you're caressed and you're comforted. And that was basically my idea of, okay, the spirituality in this film is the intimacy. It's people seeing each other and acknowledging each other, because, you know, in the rituals it's also like that. You're basically going to your ancestral spirit and saying, I need help, I need you to see me and comfort me, you know. And so for me it was important that even outside of the ritual scenes that we continue this intimacy. And so on the bus, you know, he's there, he's shining because he's in love, and there's a girl looking at him like, yes, he's in love, you know. Or it's him looking at his sister and seeing that she's in pain, or that she's glowing from the pregnancy. So all of these moments, it's my way of depicting the spirituality of the film. And again, in this particular scene you're talking about, it's just them just looking at each other, and I don't think there's anything more beautiful or intimate or spiritual, you know, than just looking and being intimate. But it's also beyond. It's not just between people who are together. It's also this intimacy. It's also with people that are no longer present, and that's what shamanism, these rituals are about. You're getting to talk to your ancestral spirits, you know.
Yeah.
So it's also this intimacy that's between people who are no longer present, and it's also an intimacy with the cosmos, because, you know, I make a point of also showing how Mongolians interact with nature, how you're constantly having conversations with the sun, with the moon, and with the river, and, you know, so for me this is spirituality. This is what I want to depict in the film, is intimacy in Mongolia.
I almost want to say, because of everything that you just pointed out, it's going to make him better at his job it's going to make him a better shaman because he has to go through
Absolutely.
not a re-education, but a realignment of what that means to him. And so it's almost like what he goes through in his personal life becomes a guiding light. What I thought was a lot of fun about the film is like there's this idea of verses like this versus that, or a polarity that exists. And there's one dialogue scene where she reminds him that he's two halves. And though it's not in our face, this film is very much that representation of the fracture between childhood and adulthood. And under the guise of where modernism is often working against and with tradition or obligation and desire, those two facets are like, they're counter opposites, but they balance each other out. I thought that just inhibiting those ideas was so fascinating. Yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of the importance of her mentioning that to him.
The yin and the yang, I mean, these concepts are there because it helps us comprehend in theory. You know, we're trying to understand, okay, this is tradition, this is modernity, but in practice, in real life, what I find is that nothing is as dualistic and dialectical as that. Mm-hmm. And for me, super important that this film is not about tradition versus modernism, that it's not about an obligation, that you have to make choices in between desire and spirituality or anything like that. This is not about a boy making a choice. This is not about him individualizing from society and all these things. It was very important that I portray life in Mongolia as a mosaic, I guess you could say. Yeah. That it's about tension. You can say there's tension between these two aspects, but it's a spectrum. Sometimes there's extension and sometimes there's contraction, and it's a fluid movement. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of moving through the film with him, and we're just kind of moving through the tension. And sometimes the tension is more contracted. Sometimes it's more extended. And this is it. It's important that I portray life in Mongolia as something that's not how to say conflicting, because I don't feel that way as a modern Mongolian. It's not that I'm like caught between two different worlds and I can't, I have to find my path or anything like that. It's about kind of riding the wave a bit. Yes. And it's about this fluidity and movement, and I think at least, I mean, the movement of the film, I tried to give that aspect. That it's. I want to say that you actually capture that. Like I'm very happy. Yeah, no, actually, on this note, I want to say my favorite scene is this scene on the bridge when they're drawing each other. Yes. And for me, it's so indicative of how you can, in modern Mongolia, as modern Mongolians, you can have different viewpoints that maybe clash. And, a girl who wants to live in the countryside, but, has problem with, with shamanism, but the boy who is a shaman who wants to live in this, whatever. So it's so many different layers and elements, but they're all carried together, and it's about also accepting each other. Yeah. And this is why I just love it when they're kind of teasing each other with the photo, with the drawings they make. It's such a perfect little snippet of how life is. We'll end with one sequence. I don't know if I want to give it away, but at one juncture in the film, there's obviously conflict between the young classmates and whatnot, but there's like this unifying scene that occurs. Yeah. What are you hoping audiences get out of a scene that's actually quite joyful and quite alluring, alarming, and yeah, it's off the cuff and it's very grounded and it's very raw, and yet it's very delightful and light. Like, there's a whole bunch of things happening in that sequence. Like, it's almost like there's a diffusion, like, yeah. This is a complicated question because one of my intentions with this film, particularly when it comes to the younger generation in Mongolia, is to strengthen them spiritually is to it's hard to put it into words, but
I like where you're going with the explanation.
It's to say, I mean, I don't want to be too like, you know, so people start watching the scene as that.
But it's not aimless youth.
No. I'm trying to empower this, the youth of Mongolia to say that you are together and that you have an enormous amount of power. And in fact, particularly because, you know, these young people, they reside in a certain part of the city, in the yurt district, and always generally the portrayal is it's, you know, disenfranchised and powerless, you know, and
it's a lot more complex. You want it to be representative of what it actually is, which is people of different facets, different backgrounds coming together and voicing, in a literal, figurative, metaphoric sense, symbolic sense, But
just to say the youth, that they have so much power, because, you know, the problems in Mongolia, they're like, there's so many political and social problems, but I just wanted the youth to understand that they are the power, you know, that they have, that they're together.
Yes.
Yeah. I will just say that.
Yes, without giving anything away. Thank you so much for elaborating on that specific question. Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
You're going to Toronto next. It's going to have a long film festival life. So yeah, get ready to pack your bags, miss a couple of flights in there.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.